Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you are joining us for the first time, this is where we take a stack of articles, research, and expert insights, and we distill them down into something you can actually use.
We try anyway.
We do our best. And for this episode, I want to welcome you specifically to our coverage within the Funeral Channel Network podcast sphere.
It's a surprisingly fascinating corner of the world, isn't it?
It really, really is. And
Yeah.
I want to start today by painting a picture. I want you to imagine a scene that I think pretty much every single person listening to this has been in.
Oh.
You're walking into a church or a funeral home, maybe a community center. You're probably wearing uncomfortable shoes.
Always uncomfortable shoes.
Right. And you're feeling that weird mix of, genuine sadness and sort of social anxiety.
Yeah.
You sign the little guest book. And then an usher or maybe a family friend, they hand you something.
The program.
The program. It's usually a folded piece of cardstock. Maybe it's glossy, maybe it's matte. And for the next hour, that piece of paper it's your lifeline.
It really is. It's a tactile anchor.
Hmm.
In a moment where everything feels emotionally unmoored, it's, the one physical thing you can actually hold on to.
You hold it, you fan yourself with it if the AC isn't working. You read the obituary 3 times while you're waiting for the music to start.
Mm-hmm.
But here is the question I want to pose. What happens to that piece of paper when the service is over? You walk to your car. Do you throw it in the trash can by the door?
Oh, absolutely not. It feels almost sacrilegious.
It feels wrong. Right, so it goes in your purse or your glove compartment. And then it eventually ends up in a drawer or tucked inside a Bible or in a memory box in the back of the closet.
Yeah.
I was cleaning out a desk recently, and I found a stack of these going back 15 years. And here's the thing. When I looked at them, I didn't read the order of service.
No.
I didn't care that the opening hymn was Amazing Grace. I looked at the pictures.
And that, right there, that is the crux of what we are talking about today. That piece of paper transitions. In the moment, it's a schedule, it's a logistical tool, but the second the service ends, and for all the years afterwards, it becomes what our source material calls a visual narrative.
A visual narrative.
Yeah. It's often the only permanent physical record of that person's life that you will ever own.
That sounds very curatorial, very intentional.
It is. And today we are doing a deep dive into the art of creating that narrative. We are looking at source material from the funeral program site, and we're specifically analyzing insights from a creator named Ava, and also this very comprehensive essay titled Personalizing Photo Layouts for Meaningful Funeral Program Tributes.
And before anyone tunes out thinking, oh, I'm not planning a funeral right now, this doesn't apply to me, I want to stop you right there. Because this isn't just about funerals, this is about storytelling.
It is. It's about psychology.
It's about how we take a messy, complicated, beautiful human life and distill it down to 4 pages of paper.
That is the challenge.
Right.
How do you take 80 years of life, the shoeboxes full of Polaroids, the thousands of JPEGs on a hard drive, and turn it into something that actually helps people grieve? Because the source material argues that most of the time we get this wrong.
We get it wrong. How?
Well, maybe not wrong, but
Yes.
we miss the opportunity. We treat it as a chore. Okay, I need a picture for the cover, check. I need something for the back, check. We treat it like we're designing a flyer for a bake sale.
Right.
But the mission of this deep dive is to move from what the source calls generic photo collages to designing a visual journey.
Okay, a visual journey versus a collage. That feels like a really big distinction. A collage to me sounds like something I did in 7th grade with a glue stick and a magazine.
And that's not far off from what we often see. So let's get into the weeds here. Section 1 is all about this shift from decoration to narrative. The source identifies a very specific problem that I think we have all seen. They call it the scattershot method.
The scattershot method, that sounds familiar.
It's the default mode for a panic-stricken family that's short on time and high on stress.
Paint the picture for us. What does this look like when I open the program?
Okay, you open the program, usually to the back page or maybe the inside center spread, and it is just a grid. It's 12, maybe 15 photos. They're all roughly the same size, 2 inches square.
Yeah.
And you have a baby picture right next to a wedding picture,
Yeah.
right next to a picture of them holding a fish, right next to a blurry photo from a Christmas party in 1998.
I have seen this 100 times. And to be fair, I've probably done it. The logic is I have this empty space and I have these 10 photos I like, so I'm just going to fit them all in.
Why is the source material so against this?
Because the brain treats random visual data as texture. It treats it as wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
Yeah, when you look at a scattershot grid, your eye doesn't know where to land. It scans. It skims, it sees lots of pictures, but it doesn't actually process the story of the life. It registers as visual noise.
So it's kind of the difference between reading a book and staring at a word search puzzle. That is a fantastic analogy, yes. In a word search, you're just seeing a jumble of letters until you force yourself to find a pattern. In a scattershot collage, you're just seeing face, 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 face.
And you don't really connect with any of them.
You can't. The source argues that we need to move from that to a visual journey, and a journey implies a path. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It guides you.
But that sounds hard. I mean, if I'm a grieving family member, I'm barely sleeping. I have a million decisions to make about flowers and caskets, and now I have to be a narrative architect.
It sounds intimidating, I know.
How do we simplify this? What are the structures the source recommends to even begin to do that?
The source is actually very helpful here. They don't just say do better. They give you a roadmap. They break it down into 4 frameworks. You don't have to invent the wheel. You just have to pick a lane.
Okay, 4 frameworks. What's the first one?
The first, and probably the most natural for many people, is the chronological journey.
Start at the baby photo,
Yeah.
end at the retirement party. Simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Childhood, young adulthood, maybe marriage, and creating their own family later years. This works because it validates the span of time. It shows endurance. It shows growth.
There's a story built right in.
There is. When you see the physical change in the person, from a tiny baby to a grandparent, you subconsciously process the fullness of the life lived. It tells the story of time itself.
Okay, but what if you don't have photos from every era? Or what if, and let's be real here, the person had a really rough middle period that the family doesn't necessarily want to highlight?
A very real scenario. And that's where the other structures come in. The source suggests a thematic focus. This is less about when and more about what.
Less about the timeline, more about the person's identity.
Precisely. Give me an example of that. What would that look like?
Okay, so let's say the person was defined by 3 things: their military service, their absolute love of gardening, and their church choir. So you structure the layout around those pillars. You have a service section with photos of them in uniform, a nature section in the garden, a faith section with the choir.
Right. And immediately you're telling a much richer story.
I like that because it defines identity. It says this is who they were, not just this is how long they were here.
Exactly. It answers the question of values. What was important to this person?
Yeah.
Then you have the third one, the relational focus.
Relationships, okay.
This is grouping photos by connection.
Yeah.
So maybe one spread is the father, photos with the kids. Another is the friend, photos from the bowling league or the fishing trips. Another is the partner.
So you're telling the story of their life through the people they loved?
Yes, which for many people is the most important story of all.
And the fourth one, you said there were 4.
The fourth one is the most abstract, but I think it might be the most powerful if you can pull it off.
Mm.
It's the emotional arc.
Ooh, an emotional arc. Tell me about that. That sounds advanced.
It is, a little bit. But it's about arranging photos to guide the mourner's feelings. So you might start with a section dedicated to joy. High-energy photos, them laughing, parties, vitality.
Okay.
Then you move into love, the wedding, hugging a grandchild, moments of real intimacy, and you could end with reflection, quiet moments, them looking out at the ocean, a peaceful smile.
Wow, so you're actually designing the grief experience on the page.
You're creating what the essay calls a visual rhythm. Instead of just bombarding the viewer with everything at once, you are gently taking them by the hand and saying, first, remember how fun they were. Now remember how loving they were. Now let's find some peace.
That's beautiful, but,
Yeah.
and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, or maybe just stressed out family member advocate.
Wait for it.
To do any of that chronological, thematic, any of it, you have to leave photos out.
Yes, you do. That's the hard part.
And this brings us right to section 2, curation, the art of selection. Because the source material identifies the myth that more is better as the single biggest mistake people make.
It is the hill the experts in these articles are willing to die on.
Ah.
And it is, without a doubt, the hardest pill for families to swallow.
I can just hear the arguments now. But we have to include the picture of him with Cousin Eddie, or Eddie will be offended.
But she looks so pretty in that one, even if it's blurry.
Yes. All of that. What's the core problem with that thinking?
It's panic. It comes from a place of love,
Yeah.
but it's panic. We feel like if we don't show everything, we are erasing parts of them. But let's look at the psychology the source presents. They argue that overcrowding dilutes emotion.
Dilutes it. How?
Think about a gallery in a museum. A really nice one. Do they hang 500 paintings on one wall, touching each other floor to ceiling?
No, of course not. They hang one painting with a bunch of empty wall around it.
And why do they do that?
So you actually look at it so it feels important.
Exactly. Space creates importance. If you put 50 photos on a page, you are telling the viewer that none of them are particularly important. You are creating a texture, not a tribute. But if you choose 5 photos,
Then you're saying something.
you're saying these 5 moments, these 5 moments define this human being. It's an act of editorial courage.
So the source suggests we need to change the fundamental question we ask ourselves. Instead of which photos should I use, which implies using as many as possible, we should ask what story do I want to tell?
That is the entire shift, right there. If the story is she was the warmth of this family, then a blurry photo of her in the background of a crowded room doesn't tell that story. But one clear, beautiful photo of her holding a grandchild that tells the whole story in a single image.
Okay, so let's say I'm convinced, I'm ready to cut, I'm ready to curate, but what am I looking for? Where do I even start? This source provides a really helpful checklist here called the 4 essential photo types.
This is your roadmap. If you feel lost, you come back to this. If you want a balanced tribute, you need to try to hit these 4 notes.
Let's walk through them. Number 1, candid close-ups.
These are what the source calls the emotionally rich images, the gold.
Now, wait a second. We all have phones with amazing cameras. We have a million photos. Why does the source imply these are hard to find?
Because most of our photos aren't actually candid. They are performative.
What do you mean?
Think about how we take pictures. Hey, everyone, get together. Look here. Say cheese. We put on a mask for the camera. We smile that specific photo smile.
Oh, I know that smile. The I'm holding this for 3 seconds and my cheeks hurt smile.
That's the one. But a candid close-up is different. It's caught in the in-between moments. Maybe they are laughing at a joke and their head is thrown back. Maybe they are listening intently to someone and they have that thoughtful furrow in their brow.
It's the face you saw across the dinner table every night.
Yes, that's it. It creates intimacy. When you put a true, candid close-up on the page, the viewer feels like they are in the room with him. It cuts through the formality of the funeral and brings the person back to life for just a second.
Okay, that's powerful. So that's type number 1. Type number 2, relational moments.
This is, simply, photos of the deceased with other people.
This seems obvious, but why is it a specific category? Isn't that most photos?
It often is, but the source wants us to be intentional about it. Because grief, at its core, is about the severing of connection. We need to see the connection to validate the loss. A funeral program with only photos of the person alone can feel isolated. It can feel lonely.
That's a really interesting point. You need to see them being loved.
And loving others. It reminds the community that this person was woven into a web of relationships, that their life had an impact on all these other lives.
Okay, type number 3, environmental shots. This was my favorite category because I hadn't really thought about it this way before.
It's a game changer. This
Yeah.
is about context. It's about answering the question of where they lived their life.
The source isn't just talking about a pretty landscape photo, right?
No, not at all. It's the person in their element.
Yeah.
Let me give you a specific example. Let's say your grandfather was a carpenter. You could use his formal church headshot, and that's fine. But imagine a photo taken from the doorway of his workshop. His back is maybe slightly to the camera. He's wearing that old flannel shirt he always wore. There is sawdust in the air. You can almost see it in the light. He's focused on the lathe.
I can smell that picture. I can smell the sawdust and the oil.
Exactly. That one photo transports you. The formal headshot tells you what his face looked like. The environmental shot tells you who he was. It grounds the memory in a physical reality.
That is so powerful. And the 4th type is similar but distinct, activity-based images.
This is about vitality. It's about energy. It's about hobbies, passions, daily rituals.
So it's the difference between a picture of him standing by the lake and a picture of him in the action of casting the fishing rod.
Perfect example.
Yes.
Or the action of knitting, the action of carving the Thanksgiving turkey. These photos show how they lived. They counter the stillness of death with the motion of life.
So the goal is to mix and match these. You don't want 4 fishing photos, even if he loved fishing. You want a candid close-up of his face as he gets a bite, a relational photo of him teaching his grandkid to fish, an environmental shot of his favorite fishing spot at dawn, and an activity-based shot of him reeling one in.
Now you're thinking like a curator. That's the recipe for a full 3-dimensional picture of a human being.
Okay, so we have our ingredients, we've gone through the shoebox, we've curated, now we have to cook. We have to actually put them on the page.
Right.
And this brings us to section 3, design principles. The source calls this the mechanics of emotion, which sounds very grand.
It does, but it's actually just, practical physics for the eye. It's about how
Yeah.
people look at things.
The first principle they list is having a focal point. Why is this so critical? Why can't all the pictures be equal?
Because the human eye is lazy. It's efficient. It wants to be told where to look first. If you give me a page with 6 photos and they are all exactly the same size, my eye just darts around, it gets anxious, it's looking for the leader of the page.
So you need a hero image, a main event.
You do. You need one image that is significantly larger than the others. It anchors the page. It says, start here.
Yeah.
And the source has an interesting take on this. It shouldn't necessarily be the formal obituary headshot.
Really? That's almost always the main photo.
It can be. There's nothing wrong with it. But imagine if the focal point is that amazing candid laughing shot we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It sets the emotional tone for the whole page. It tells the viewer this is a celebration of a joyful life before they've even read a word.
Now, I want to talk about a concept that drives DIY designers, myself included, absolutely crazy. It feels like a waste of space, literally. And that is white space.
The graphic designer's best friend and the amateur's worst enemy.
The source says white space isn't empty, it is breathing room. Explain that to the person who is paying for every inch of that paper and wants to fill it up.
Let's go back to the emotion of the day. A funeral is heavy. It can feel emotionally suffocating. You are overwhelmed with memories, with sadness, with people. If you hand someone a piece of paper that is visually cluttered, that's crowded, with photos touching each other and text crammed into the margins,
Yeah.
you are visually replicating that same anxiety.
It feels chaotic. It feels stressful to look at.
It feels loud. But a page with generous margins, a page where there is a clean inch of white space between the photos, that feels like taking a deep breath. It communicates dignity. It communicates peace and calm.
So the white space is actually doing work. It's not empty.
It is active,
Yeah.
not passive.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the viewer's eye a place to rest while they process the emotion of the photo they just looked at. Without it, there's no time to feel anything.
That makes so much sense. It's pacing. Now let's get technical for a second. Alignment and consistency. The source has this great line, alignment matters more than decoration.
This is the quickest way to tell the difference between something that looks homemade and something that looks handmade.
What's the difference?
Homemade, in this context, often means scrapbooked. Things are tilted. Oh, let's put this one at a jaunty angle.
I've done the jaunty angle. I thought it looked whimsical and fun.
And for a birthday party invite, maybe it is whimsical. But for a funeral program, it often just looks messy. It can look like the photos just fell on the page by accident. Handmade, on the other hand, implies craftsmanship. It implies care.
So keep it straight.
Literally, keep the horizons in your photos straight. If you have a row of photos, make sure the tops and bottoms align perfectly. If you are mixing vertical and horizontal photos, do it on an underlying grid so it feels organized.
Why does this matter so much on an emotional level?
Because structure looks like honor. It looks like respect. When something is perfectly aligned and ordered, it subconsciously tells the viewer, we took the time to make this perfect because this person mattered. Disorder, even accidental disorder, can unfortunately look like carelessness.
Let's move to section 4. We've been talking about single pages, but usually these are booklets. You open them up and you have a left page and a right page, a 2-page spread.
And the source insists we need to stop thinking of page 2 and page 3. We need to think of the spread.
Because you see it all at once. It's one big canvas.
Right. When you hold that booklet open, your peripheral vision sees the whole thing. If the left page is chaotic and the right page is minimal and clean, it feels unbalanced and disjointed. They need to speak to each other.
So what are some layout strategies for the spread that the source suggests?
Well, one is the center focal. Imagine a large, powerful image that sits right near the fold. Maybe it even crosses it slightly if you're careful with printing. And then smaller images radiate out from there, like satellites around a planet.
Okay, I can picture that.
Another is left story, right story.
Yeah.
This goes back to our thematic structure. Maybe the left page is the family man, all those relational photos. And the right page is the fisherman, all the activity and environmental photos. They talk to each other, but they each have their own distinct identities.
And what about the flow of the eye across the page?
In the West, we read top left to bottom right. You can use that. It's called the top to bottom flow. Start with the childhood photos in the top left corner and then cascade them down diagonally to the later years in the bottom right. You are physically guiding the eye down the river of time.
Now, we have to talk about the text, because there is always text. The obituary, the poem, the scripture verses, the source calls this the marriage of text and image.
This is where things can get really tricky. You don't want the photos to fight the text for attention.
How do you avoid that? What are the common mistakes?
The biggest mistake is contextual mismatch. People just find a hole in the layout and plug a picture in to fill it.
Okay.
But the source says you should use contextual placement. If the obituary text is talking about his 20 years in the Navy, that is where you put the photo of him in uniform. Don't put the fishing photo there.
It sounds so obvious when you say it, but I bet it happens all the time.
All the time. And then you get this weird disconnect. The text says he was a decorated war hero, and the photo right next to it is him eating a hot dog at a barbecue. It creates cognitive dissonance for the reader.
What about captions? Are they necessary? Do they add clutter?
The source highly recommends them, if they're kept short. Personalization goes beyond just the photo. A short descriptor, summer 1982 Lake Tahoe, anchors the memory. It stops people from guessing.
Is that Aunt Carol or Aunt Sue in the background?
Exactly. And quotes can be great too. A favorite saying of theirs underneath a photo of them smiling, that adds their voice back into the image. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, let's get into the danger zone. Section 5, common pitfalls and technical realities. We've touched on overcrowding, but I want to get into the really specific stuff that can ruin a beautiful DIY project, things like resolution and bleed.
Ah, yes. The technical gremlins that appear at 2 in the morning before you have to go to the printer.
Let's start with digital versus print nuances. This trips everyone up. I look at a photo on my iPhone, it looks amazing, bright, and vibrant. I print it, and it looks like dark, sad mud. Why?
This is a simple physics problem that no one ever tells you about. Your phone screen is a light bulb. It is an illuminated source. It is projecting light through the image into your eyeball. It makes colors pop. It makes everything look bright.
And paper.
Paper is not a light bulb. Paper reflects ambient light. It doesn't generate its own. So when you take that luminous digital image and you slap it on matte cardstock, it loses that inner light. It gets darker. It gets flatter. It's inevitable.
So what's the fix? For the person sitting at home with Microsoft Word or a simple template.
The fix is to overcompensate. If you are doing this yourself, open that photo editor on your phone or computer and bump the brightness up.
How much?
More than you think. Maybe 15 or 20%. You should look a little uncomfortable on your screen, a little blown out.
That feels so wrong. You're making the picture look worse.
It feels wrong on the screen, but I promise you, when the ink hits the paper and gets absorbed, it will settle down and look correct. A good rule of thumb is, if it looks perfect on screen, it will print dark.
That is $1 million tip right there. Now explain bleed. I see this on printing websites, full bleed, and I usually just ignore it because it sounds violent and complicated.
It does sound violent, but it's actually your best friend. Okay, imagine you are painting a wall in your house, and you want to paint it blue, but the ceiling is white.
Okay, I'm with you.
It is really, really hard to paint exactly to the corner without getting a little blue on the ceiling or leaving a tiny white strip on the wall.
Right, right. It's never perfect unless you use tape.
Printers are the same way. They are fast mechanical machines.
Mm-hmm.
The paper shifts a millimeter. The cutting blade shifts a millimeter. They cannot print perfectly to the razor's edge of a piece of paper every single time.
So if I put a photo right up to the very edge of my design,
When they cut the stacks of paper, if it shifts just a tiny bit, you might end up with a hairline white stripe down the side of your photo. It looks like a mistake. It looks cheap. It looks like you missed a spot.
so what is bleed? What am I actually doing?
Pleat is simply extending your photo past the edge of where you think the cut will be. You essentially paint onto the ceiling on purpose by about 1/8 of an inch, knowing that part will get trimmed off.
So you intentionally design a bigger image and lose a bit of the photo around the edges.
Yes. You sacrifice the outer 1/8 of an inch of the image so that when the cut is made, the color goes all the way to the very edge, no matter how it shifts.
This brings up a horror story I heard once about Uncle Bob's ear.
Oh no, I think I know where this is going.
Someone designed a family photo collage, put it right to the edge of the page, didn't use bleed, and when the printer cut the cards,
Uncle Bob lost the top of his head or an ear.
Uncle Bob lost an ear.
Yeah.
On every single program.
That is exactly why you need to be careful. The practical advice here is to keep important things like faces and text away from the edge. Give yourself a safety zone or a margin, even if you are using a bleed.
Good advice. Another pitfall. Inconsistent quality. The blurry photo.
This is a tough one, emotionally, because sometimes the only photo you have of a specific cherished moment is a grainy, pixelated mess from a flip phone in 2008.
So what do? Do we use it? Do we leave it out?
The source advises extreme caution. If you try to blow that thumbnail-sized photo up to be a full-page cover, it will look like a mistake. It'll look like a Minecraft character.
It distracts from the person. All you see is the bad quality.
It does. The advice is, if you absolutely must use a low-quality photo because the emotional value is just too high, keep it small. Make it a stamp size and a collage of other high-quality photos. Do not try to make it a hero image.
And finally, a pitfall we've touched on but should name. Random placement.
This is just sticking a photo in a corner because you had a gap. Don't do it. Every single image should look chosen, placed, and respected. If it looks like an afterthought, it feels like an afterthought to everyone who sees it.
I want to pivot now to section 6, which is incredibly important before we wrap up, and that is cultural and spiritual sensitivity. Because not everyone grieves the same way, and not every funeral looks the same.
This is a critical point. There is no universal correct layout. Design is a language, and different cultures speak it differently.
The source notes that some cultures view visual space very differently.
Absolutely. In some Western, particularly Scandinavian or Japanese-influenced design traditions, less is more. A single perfect photo with lots of white space that is seen as elegant, serene, and respectful.
But that's not everywhere. That's not a universal good.
Not at all. In many other cultures, the source mentions parts of Latin America, the Philippines, certain African traditions, abundance is the sign of respect. A page that is completely filled with faces, memories, bright color, that is a sign of a rich and full life.
So if you gave a minimalist program to a family expecting abundance,
They might feel it looks cheap or empty. They might think, did he not have friends? Why is this page so blank? It could be seen as a slight.
so the key is you have to know your audience.
You have to know the family tradition. You have to read the room and design for them, not for Design Magazine.
And what about faith-based considerations? How does religion play into layout?
In many faith-centered services, the photos of the person are sharing the stage with the divine. You might have scripture, crosses, icons, images of saints.
How do you balance the selfie with the scripture?
The source suggests that in these cases, restraint is often more powerful than abundance. You don't want the photo of the deceased to visually overpower the religious symbols if the service is deeply religious. They should exist in harmony.
So maybe the photo is on the left page and the key scripture is on the right page and they're given equal visual weight.
Exactly. It's about respecting the solemnity of the sacrament while still celebrating the life of the individual. It's a balance.
We've covered so much ground here. Structures, curation, bleed, white space, culture. But I want to circle back to the why. Why are we spending an hour talking about cardstock? What is the so what of all this?
The so what is that this isn't about paper. It was never about paper. It's about giving permission.
Permission. Permission to do what?
Permission to grieve. Think about the person sitting in that pew. They're holding this program. They see a photo of the deceased laughing. A really good, candid laugh. It triggers a memory for them. They smile.
Yeah.
Then they turn the page and see a photo of them holding their newborn child. They tear up. The layout is walking them through their own emotions.
The layout is creating a safe space for those feelings.
It is. It validates their emotions. It says it's okay to smile at the fishing photo. It's okay to cry at the wedding photo. It gives them a map for their own grief in that moment.
It also sparks conversation later.
Oh, hugely. How many times have you been at a reception afterwards and someone points to the program and says, hey, I was there that day. That was the trip to the Grand Canyon in '03.
And suddenly, you're not making small talk about the weather, you're telling stories.
Suddenly, the program is doing its most important job, connecting the community in shared memory.
And then there's the keepsake factor. We talked about this at the very start. Long after the flowers die, long after the casserole dishes are returned, this stays.
It becomes an emotional archive. By designing with intention, you are not just making a brochure for an event, you are preserving a personality. You are capturing an essence for future generations.
It's a document of record for a life.
It is. I think about a grandchild who might be born 10 years from now. They might never have met this person. But if they find this program in a drawer, and it's a random scattershot of blurry photos, they won't learn much.
But if it's a curated visual journey,
If it shows the sawdust-covered carpenter, and the laughing father, and the quiet contemplative man looking at the ocean, they will meet their grandfather through those pages. That is legacy work. That's why this matters.
That is a very powerful thought. And it leads me to the question I want to leave our listeners with today.
It's a bit of a challenge.
It is. If your life was being summarized in a 4-page spread today, strictly based on the photos that are currently accessible on your phone or your computer,
Ooh.
what story would that tell?
That is a terrifying question for a lot of us.
Would it tell the story of your hobbies, your relationships, your quiet moments, your values? Or would it just be 10,000 screenshots of memes and a bunch of awkward selfies?
And maybe more importantly, are those photos even accessible? Or are they trapped in a cloud account that no one else has the password to? Are they on an old hard drive in a box in the basement?
We take more photos than any generation in human history.
But we curate them less.
Yeah.
We're drowning in images, but we are starving for narratives.
So maybe the homework from today is this. Don't wait for the funeral program. Start curating your visual journey now.
I love that. Make the album, print the photos,
Yeah.
tell your own story while you are still here to enjoy it and share it.
Visual storytelling isn't just for the end of life. It's for celebrating it right now in the middle of it all.
Perfection isn't the goal. Intention is.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. I will truly never look at a funeral program the same way again.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.